Selamat menyambut Hari Kebangsaan ke-63. I'm Prasad Michael and you're watching Kini News. Syed Saddiq is planning to disrupt Malaysian politics. Stay tuned because that is coming later in the show. But first, Malaysia celebrated its National Day 2020 like never before with COVID-19 SOPs in place, including a limit on the number of attendees in Putrajaya. As Malaysians celebrate the country's 63rd National Day, His Majesty the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah, has called on the rakyat to appreciate and practice the Rukun Negara in all aspects of daily life.
Beta ingin berpesan, Rukun Negara bukan sekadar dijulang secara simbolik menerusi bacaan pada saban tahun kita menyambut Hari Kebangsaan. Sebaliknya, roh dan semangat Rukun Negara hendaklah dihayati dan diamalkan dalam setiap aspek kehidupan seharian.
His Majesty said this in his royal address in conjunction with the National Day, which is also the 50th anniversary of the Rukun Negara.
Terkandunglah dalam setiap 5 prinsip Rukun Negara adalah satu formula keramat bagaimana rakyat yang berbilang bangsa, agama, budaya dan bahasa boleh mengatasi segala perbezaan dan kepelbagaian tersebut dan seterusnya dapat hidup secara rukun dan damai. Rukun negara menuntut sebuah negara bangsa yang dibentuk atas keteguhan pegangan agama yang kukuh, manakala rakyat pula dituntut untuk mencurahkan taat setia pada raja yang menjadi payung dan lambang kedaulatan negara.
The Rukun Negara, or the National Principles in English, was declared on Merdeka Day in 1970, over a year after the nation suffered one of its bloodiest riots on May 13, 1969. The principles were introduced in a bid to solidify strong national unity and to spur prosperity and development.
Beta berkeyakinan jika semangat yang terkandung dalam Rukun Negara terus dihayati dan tersemat kukuh di setiap jiwa rakyat Malaysia, insya-Allah negara kita akan terus kekal aman dan damai serta akan menjadi sebuah negara yang kukuh dan makmur dengan rakyat yang bersatu padu.
In a podcast, former PNB CEO Abdul Rashid revealed why political appointments aren't good for the image of Malaysian GLCs. Former Permodalan Nasional Berhad PNB CEO Abdul Rashid said in a podcast yesterday that perception of investors on transparency and integrity in corporate Malaysia has taken a hit after a wave of political appointments to government-linked companies.
And as they say, it all starts from the top, right? You know, when you have, I guess, politicians leading, the perception is not going to be great. So I think this recent spate of appointments has probably pushed Malaysia down, the corporate governance rating, and probably made Malaysia, I guess, a bit more less attractive from an investment point of view, especially for foreign investors who when invest in emerging markets look at transparency and corporate governance, right?
Jalil said foreign investors would scrutinize transparency and corporate governance when investing in emerging markets.
See a politician there, you know, again perceptions would fly about whose interest exactly is being protected first, right? I'm not a fan of that. I've made this stand extremely very clear. And I think it's not a good practice.
Jalil was the CEO of an investment management firm in Singapore before his stint as PNB CEO. Political appointments have been long practiced in Malaysia, including during the Pakatan Harapan administration. The practice of political appointments has come under the spotlight again as Harapan-era appointments, whether political or otherwise, are being replaced by PN MPs. Critics of the appointment said these posts incentivize the MPs to maintain support for PN and help Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin consolidate his grip on power. 2 deaths in 2 days. Here's Malaysia's latest COVID-19 situation. Malaysia reported 6 new COVID-19 cases today and its second death this month. Health Ministry Director General Dr. Norisham Abdullah said the new death involved a 62-year-old man, case 1924, who is part of the Tawa cluster. He is the elder brother of the cluster's index case, case 9113. The cluster is linked to a funeral held on July 31st and August 1st. Dr. Hisham said case 1924 started experiencing coughing since August 11th and was hospitalized on August 13th after testing positive for COVID-19. The patient has a history of diabetes and high blood pressure. He was confirmed dead on August 30th at 10:35 p.m. The new death is Malaysia's 127th confirmed COVID-19 fatality and the second death in 2 days. Just a day before the latest death, case 9290 had died of COVID-19 at the same hospital. Meanwhile, of the 6 new COVID-19 cases reported today, Dr. Hisham said 2 of the infections are locally acquired. Both of the cases were reported in Kedah. The DAP has backed one of Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's ideas but says more needs to be done to help Malaysians cope financially. DAP has expressed support for Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's suggestion that the monthly social welfare aid be raised to 1,000 ringgit. However, Party Secretary General Lim Guan Eng in a statement today called on the government to extend the loan moratorium. Lim also said another multi-billion ringgit stimulus package is needed to save Malaysian livelihood. The former finance minister said the number of aid recipients are expected to double from 500,000 in 2018 due to the current COVID-19 climate, which resulted in a higher unemployment rate. Last night, in his special National Day address, Muhyiddin said the Perikatan Nasional Government will make Perhatian Rakyat its main guiding principle in championing the fate and prioritising the welfare of the people.
Bagi saya secara peribadi sebagai pemimpin kerajaan, sebuah kerajaan yang baik mestilah senantiasa prihatin kepada rakyat. Kebajikan rakyat mesti diutamakan. Yang susah dibantu, yang lemah dipapah. Itulah lambang keprihatinan kerajaan kepada rakyat. Saya ingin tekankan kerajaan Perikatan Nasional adalah kerajaan prihatin rakyat.
Muhyiddin said besides providing various forms of assistance, the government also implemented the 35 billion ringgit National Economic Recovery Plan, Benjana, to help revive the economy. Muhyiddin noted that these steps taken by the government has shown positive results, with more than 15 million workers returning to work and the unemployment rate going from 5.3% in May 2020 to 4.9% in June. Coming up next, we spoke to former Bersatu leader Syed Saddiq, who is planning to transform Malaysian politics. Syed Saddiq is planning to disrupt Malaysian politics by introducing a team of young tech-savvy leaders. He's hoping this would transform politics just as e-hailing transformed how we get around. Here's what he told us.
I think post-Sheraton, we've learned many things and we need to admit we've made mistakes which should never be repeated again. And I believe that it is timely for us to set up a platform, movement and potentially a party which will serve the interests of all Malaysians but led by young people, young corporates, professionals, academicians, technocrats who will end up defining Malaysia's future, especially after more than 60 years of independence. And it's timely for us to ensure that the platform is truly multiracial, multi-religious, captures the heart of Malaysia, which is at the centre, and being policy-driven and youth-led. I think in a way it's time for us to give more opportunities for young people to lead and for all parties to revitalise their power structures. We don't want the same structures of governance in respective parties being held by the same leaders. And it's also about opening up greater doors and opportunities for those who have never been interested in politics. And that's truly the centre of Malaysia. The technocrats, professionals, academicians who have always stayed away from politics, but now, especially post-Sheraton, we're seeing a greater need for them to partake in that history change-making process. So when you look at setting up a new movement, platform and party, we need to ensure that it's not just the same faces, the same people, with the same ideologies. But now it's time for us to bring in a diverse bunch of young technocrats, professionals, academicians who truly represent the interests of the multiracial and multi-religious Malaysia. I think once you capture those groups, I think that's when policies become a lot more fine-tuned. You're looking at a world in which diversity is regarded as a positive value and never treated as a liability. But most importantly, young people are very passionate to ensure that their future in which they will inherit will be a future which is for all. So all of this, when it comes to structures, this will be defined not by me, but by the group of young leaders. I want to ensure it is as democratic as possible, to ensure that in the end all views are taken into account. But at the moment, we have many great young faces who have taken the leap of faith to join politics despite it being filled with toxicity and definitely a huge pay cut. For example, people like Jalil Rashid, who was at the head, was on top of PNB, even when he came back from Singapore, leading his own private equity firm, taking a huge pay cut to then lead PNB, and now deciding to take the leap to join to politics, to reform, especially the corporate side of things, and to ensure that his ideas can be translated into national policies. I think that's just one of the many, many examples. So there's a huge leap, right? And you look at the 5 members who have won international awards, 5 CEOs under the Forbes 30 under 30, recognized internationally, but now also partaking in this historic change-making process. These are people like Vinesh, who set up his own company despite being a dropout, but successfully building his own empire, leading to environmental changes and reforms, turning wastages into actual energy to be used by Malaysians, and now hiring many young people. So, and there are many success stories like this, like Nadir, the founder of the Lorry, also under Forbes 30 under 30, who even Singaporean companies, and Temasek is trying to poach, but decided to anchor itself in Malaysia to provide jobs and opportunities for all Malaysians. We also have those who have served communities for decades, who really have been on the ground for a very long time. People like Talib, who's now the CEO of Kota Buku, but who started at a pasar malam. He started from the bottom, but then proved himself. When a young person is given the opportunity, no matter how difficult of a family background you come from, or even if you start from pasar malam, you can still build your reputation up. The unique side of things is the fact that they've decided to endorse and join this political movement indicates that it's timely for us to create a strong, democratic, multiracial, multi-religious youth tsunami to impact public policy and politics in the most meaningful way possible. Some are interested to run for public office. Some are interested to ensure that they become party leaders, but not necessarily candidates. If you look in the United States and many other countries, those party leaders are not necessarily those who are interested to run. And some merely to lend their name, support, and also their views and ideas to build up the policy platforms for the party. But in a way, we want to ensure that the movement, party, can disrupt Malaysian politics and public policy once and for all, and to ensure that young people have a place in determining Malaysia's future.
And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'll be back with more tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Prasad Michael. Thank you for watching.